Hey, everybody, super excited for this chat today. Everyone's heard of the Ethernet, but did you know about the Ethernet Alliance and its mission and goals and membership? We're going to dive in with very esteemed members and leading engineers in their organizations, including Intel and Cisco. Gentlemen, how are you?
I'm feeling that you flatter me, but I
Doing
like it.
great.
Great. Well, good to chat with you both. We'll start with you, Peter. You're the chair of the Ethernet Alliance. Maybe introduce yourself and what is this Ethernet Alliance thing? And tell us about the mission.
So, my name is Peter Jones. My day job is with Cisco. I'm a distinguished engineer in the Cisco networking division, which, as you know, is a pretty big part of Cisco's business and everyone's life. So, the Ethernet Alliance really sits between the 802.3 Ethernet Working Group, which I'm also involved in, which defines standards. But our job really is to try and explain the value of Ethernet to the community and also to help new Ethernet standards come through and be ready. So one of the things we do, for instance, is plug fests where we try and make sure all the vendors behind closed doors get their act together because we want to offer the Ethernet value of having everything work. So we do some behind the scenes work to basically make sure stuff works when it shows up. We go up and show it working at shows like OFC and ECOC, and then we try and tell people about it.
Fantastic. And everyone knows, in the industry, Ethernet's an open standard. Why the alliance? Why? What's the genesis or the rationale behind the alliance started so long ago?
So I think there's a couple of things. So inside standards groups, there's certain things you can and can't do, right? The standards group exists for individual people to go and make contributions. The Ethernet Alliance was really formed a long time back, way before my time, to try and help steer consensus. So in 802.3, to get anything agreed is a 75% vote of a whole room of people, including your suppliers, your competitors, and your customers. So we do a bit of consensus building outside to try and shape the industry's approach into something that makes sense, and then we try and explain it to people. So it's sort of like the Wi-Fi Alliance, but a bit smaller and with a bit less testing.
Very good. Well, I had the Wi-Fi Alliance on a prior show, so I get a fantastic mission. Of course, Wi-Fi was wireless Ethernet. Really, originally, that was the big idea.
I can tell you that talking to Bob Metcalf, shameless plug, I had this interview on the EA site because we're doing a set called Stories of Ethernet where we get interviews from people. And Mr. Metcalf was first. I believe he still considers Wi-Fi wireless Ethernet.
Well, good for him. Who am I to argue? We also have Sam here. Sam, would be great to hear about your role in the Ethernet Alliance and your day job as well
Absolutely.
as that.
So I work for Intel. They're the ones who write the paycheck. I'm an engineering manager there within the network and edge group. My team is the link applications engineering team, and we focus on physical layer enablement. So we're focused on everything from basically from design to customer of just bringing link up. That's what our team does, whether it's working great or broken. We're there in the middle of it, which translates nicely to my role within the Ethernet Alliance as the high-speed networking co-chair. One of our main outputs of that forum is running interoperability plug fests. We do a lot of other things within the high-speed networking space, but that's sort of the big come together that we kind of drive through that subcommittee. And we're targeting running 2 events per year where we get as many people as we can to come together and bring all of their high-speed networking equipment to the same place and plug it all in a huge matrix and see how it works, and then share the results with the world. And we just had a really successful event last month where we did some first-time testing, and if we have a chance to talk more about that, I can share more how those events are going. And yeah, it's just been a really great opportunity for me to help the HSN mission and Ethernet in general.
And Evan, I want to
Fantastic.
mention we're very cautious about being clear which hat we wear. So today we're here as our Ethernet Alliance hat, not as our people who pay the check hat.
Yes, noted. That's an important differentiator. Well, let's start, maybe jump ball. Either of you can take it. Talk about the significance of Ethernet interoperability. We take it for granted, really. Plug it in, and it just works. Plug and play. We love to throw that around, but plug and play didn't just happen. particularly in areas like Ethernet. Tell us about the ecosystem, the current state of play, and why there's a lot of work ahead of us to ensure that sort of plug and play compatibility. Sam or Peter, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think I'll jump in on this one. Like I said, running the Interop Plugfest events is one of my primary roles within the Ethernet Alliance. Um, the It Just Works comes with a whole lot of real work behind it, and there's an entire industry of people who myself included who have a job because it doesn't always just work, and that's the reality, especially on the leading edge, right? You have new standards. I mean, we have a race between standards development and product developers who are trying to get devices in the market to satisfy, the market needs. And it takes a lot of work and just yeah, the standards development does a great job of defining things in a way that open ecosystem success is a possibility. But there are areas where things are implementation specific that are left open ended, or there can be ambiguities, or just life is complicated, and our world is even more so. So the interop testing plugfest events that we do is really, I believe, a key way that we can help drive that it just works ability. We can identify areas where things are more challenging, where we do have more problems early, and ideally before they're really seen in the broader market, and can really try and influence some of the design decisions as well as specification decisions, drive things in a way to improve that interoperability. But one of the things that I see is that with each generation of the standards, things get a lot more complicated, but we also learn from what we've the roads we've traveled, right? So we try and build, you know, part of HS10 is giving feedback into that spec space. What are things we can do to uh, fix some of the problems we saw in certain generations? And we do see evolutions where certain um,
Sorry,
I think I
that
got
was
cut
a
out there for a
production
second, but I
error
said,
on my end. But yeah,
no
please
That was
worries.
continue.
I was
that,
just saying,
that was your end,
certain,
Evan.
like, as the technologies get more complicated, there are things we try and simplify to make our lives easier as well. But at the end of the day, it takes a lot of testing, a lot of really smart people figuring out how all this stuff plays nicely together. So at the end of the day, you can buy a product and plug in a cable, and hey, link comes up.
I just want to sort of add on to
Yes.
that for a second. One of the things that's changed over the last decade or so is the prominence of the hyperscalers. And of course, because they're driving technology so fast and they have more control of the system, it can be a little difficult to make sure the technology we built for them is suitable for everyone else. So that's part of where we come in, to try and make sure that when you go buy this stuff, it just works.
Just Works is nice, and you demonstrated some pretty cool Just Working at the recent OFC event. Really interesting multi-vendor demo. Amazing speeds now being achieved
So
over
not being
Ethernet.
picky, but OFC was a while ago. It is in a couple of months. So I think we're talking about what's coming up.
Yeah, what is coming up? What do you see as the next big thing for the event? And I mean, you guys go every year. What's the big sort of next wave for speeds and
Sam, do you
access?
want to opine on this?
Yeah, I'll take a little bit. So at the OFC demo, we really try and showcase some of the broadness of what we cover in the high speed networking space, especially. So you'll see in the OFC demo a number of interconnected networking schemes that showcase link speeds from 25 gig up to 800. And
Mm.
currently, that's kind of where we're tapping out at the moment. Is at the 800 gig space, and that's 8 lanes, each running at 100 gig per lane. There is interest in the next phase of technologies, 1.6 terabyte and beyond. But the practical working interoperability demos that we have now are at that 800 gig level, and so we're seeing the different types of modules and media and cable that are coming to sort of satisfy some of the additional challenges that we have in that 800 gig space. One of the things that has a ton of interest right now is our LPO optics, or linear pluggable optics. And they are taking some of the DSP that's inside the optic and moving it into the host to try and reduce the power that's being consumed by the module, because we have a lot of problems with our power budget for some of the optical modules and things. And so there's a lot of sort of the leading edge technology that we like to showcase there, but we do it in a way that shows the interconnectedness, how in many cases you have a switch from one vendor and a module from another vendor and a fiber from someone else, and it's connected to a server that's got somebody else's networking card in it. And at the end of the day, the customer doesn't care, they need it to work, right? And so that's really where Ethernet Alliance wants to come in and be a part of really driving that open ecosystem, open interoperability. If you're here and you're adhering to the standards, like, we want to be a part of making sure that it functions, and that's what we try and showcase at OFC.
So I'm going to add on to that a little bit, because I always have to. Our sister organisation, to some extent, OAF, they actually run the booth next door to us normally, and that's where you see the true bleeding edge, the 1.6s, etc. But that's normally open board demos, and so that tells you what technology might be coming in a couple of years, and we're going to show you what you can actually buy and what works. So that's sort of the difference on the goals.
Fantastic. Well, it'd be great to see. I've never been to the event, OFC that is, but maybe next year I'll check it out. It looks like a fantastic technology showcase.
It is quite a production.
And San Diego, I think, are worse places to go for an event. Let's change gears a bit. Talk about power over Ethernet, something that's also been a long time coming. How has that evolved over the years, and what's next for power over Ethernet? Maybe some definitions are in order, Peter or Sam.
The interesting thing about power over Ethernet is this is the 0 bits per second Ethernet, and it goes back an awful long time, I believe, to when Cisco was looking at how to power IP phones. So the whole concept is there's a bunch of devices which are out there, which if we could give them power and data in a single connection, would just be more easy to adopt. The other part that's in there is because it's of the relatively low voltages, 60 volts and below, it's safe. So power over Ethernet is a way to get an efficient, safe powering source at the same place for someone who needs a copper link. We originally started, I think, at 15 watts, then we went to 30, then we went to 60, and now we're up at 90. So 90 was 803 BT, which is 4 per PoE, and that's about as far as PoE can go to stay inside the various safety standards. I mean, there are other technologies in the world which go much higher in power, but then you might need to be a certified electrician to play with them. So PoE is really focused on right now it'd be what's the maximum we can safely get through the 4-pair cabling while preserving the ability to do full plug and play. And if you think about it, 90 watts from the PSE, power sourcing equipment, comes down, I think, to the worst cases like about 75 watts at the PD. You can do a lot of things up 75 watts. So, for instance, today, this would charge my laptop and it would charge my phone in parallel. So it's become the case, and there's also a bunch of other stuff out there. It's not just phones, you see cameras. I've even seen a PoE-powered golf ball dispenser and a PoE-powered bar fridge in a hotel. So PoE is becoming a very easy way for a device that needs to be connected to get a much simpler and more efficient distribution, because we're doing a DC distribution. So it's a lot more efficient. So you save power from wall warts.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see more products incorporating it. It sounds like great for...
So just checking, we've been shipping PoE products for a decade or more. So okay, we should talk about that. If you haven't seen them yet, I have a whole set of things I'm going to send you.
Yeah, I'm thinking, speaking more from the home networking standpoint, but yeah, I'd keep to the old tech when it comes to my smart home. But speaking of innovation, I mean, what's next for Ethernet? Maybe at a big picture level, what are you excited about? What innovations might be on board beyond the next few months or year? What's exciting in that everyone's sort of buzzing about?
Yeah, so I think I touched on one, which was our linear pluggable optics. That one's got a lot of attention because of some of the advantages that it can bring to the power budget and the overall power, shifting that back into the host system, that you have less heat to dissipate from modules. There's a lot of good reasons that those are really interesting to end users right now. But I would say the thing that's got the industry's attention right now is our 200 called 200 gig per lane Ethernet. Right,
Hmm.
the 800 gig standards that we have right now, like I said, they're running at 8 by 100 gigs. So they have 8 lanes running at 100 gig each. And so the IEEE right now is working on defining the next standard beyond that, which is able to transmit data at 200 gigabits per lane. And that is going to be our standardized path to 1.6 terabyte, which is a very desirable speed for a lot of the hyperscalers. Like Peter said, they drive a lot of our growth. And so at the most recent Ethernet Alliance Plugfest in December, we were able to do some testing on this 200 running at 212 gigabit per second protocol, and it was a really exciting opportunity for us. Where HSN was able to not partner with per se, but we were able to contribute to IEEE's development of the standards and execute some of the testing and gather some data and results that they were desperately in need of. And we're able to use that to inform and really help drive the direction of the standards. And we're kind of waiting for them to uh, internalize and then make some changes based on our testing results, and then we'll do the next Plugfest to test the next round. So we're really closely watching what's happening there in the IEEE space to help drive that 200 gig per lane development. So that's really probably the next big thing in our space, I would say.
Awesome. Peter, any color commentary? Anything else that you've
Um,
seen, or
so,
maybe you can't tell us because you
so,
have
so
to.
I'm actually more interested in the low speed side of the house. So I'm actually
Okay.
working with the technologies for building and industrial automation, where we're
Wow.
looking at 10 megabits a second and 100 megabits a second over a single copper pair to
Mm.
replace all of the old control loops used to have things like RS-232, device net, backnet, all this other stuff. So we have lots of activity both at the very high speed and at the very low speed.
That's very cool. Interesting. Wireless is going the same way. So sort of tracking, looking at low
So the
bit
way I
rate.
think about this, Evan, is so the original sort of motto in Ethernet was 10 times the speed for 3 times the price. It
Mm.
was a great plan until it wasn't anymore. So when you tried to do 100 gig, that was really complicated. So we did 40 instead. Things continued, and then we said, actually, we're going to go do 25 because that made sense talking to servers. And after that, we did 50, and we're also starting to see 2.5 5G based Ts. So we're doing speciation where we're filling in the bits in the middle. So instead of being that we're going to go 10 times as fast for 3 times the price, we're looking more at okay, what makes sense? What's consumable?
Very cool. So when you talk to members and supporters, I mean, the manufacturers, silicon providers, the whole stack, what are some of the challenges you see them facing in deploying next generation Ethernet solutions? We've all seen supply chain and challenges on the semiconductor side, but what else? What else are some of their
So
concerns?
I think on the high speed side of the house, heat and power is a huge problem. You go and
Mm.
look at what the web scalers are dealing with right now. For a long time, it used to be, let me put more and more in a 1 RU so the rack can get full. Now we're at how do I get enough power into the rack and enough cooling out? So you're starting to see a lot of work on how to reduce power consumption inside devices. You're also starting to see a lot of work on interesting cooling technologies, being liquid cooling, either hot plate or direct immersion. So both from a sustainability and just a practicality point of view, power consumption is becoming enormously important. And for a long time, when you looked at building systems, you sort of tend to say, what's the worst case power? These days, particularly in enterprise, we want to focus on what's actually consumed. So we need to be part of the sustainability story, and that's some very interesting technical challenges in that.
Interesting. Yeah, sustainability has
Yeah, if
become
you
a
look at the
design
overall,
principle now from day one. Sorry,
yeah,
Sam, what were you saying?
that's fine. I was going to say, yeah, from like a data center point of view, if you look at the cost of running a data center, the amount of power that you have to pump into it and the amount of heat you have to deal with dissipating out of it, it's a huge cost burden. And especially as we move to these higher technologies, your cable reach becomes a much bigger challenge. Right, at 25 gig per lane, we could run things at 5 meters, even maybe 7 meters if you're pushing it. Now we're trying to get like 1 meter out of some of the the latest 200 gig standards. So you're having to move to a non-passive medium in a lot more cases, right? Whereas normally you could get away with using a copper cable in a lot of cases. Now you're having to use optical modules, AOCs, things that are going to extend the reach a little bit, some retimed copper cables, all kinds of stuff. They consume a lot more power. So not only are you consuming a lot more power because you're running at much higher speeds, the DSPs are much more complex. We see significant growth in the power, just to achieve the same uh, comparable reaches. But the signal integrity challenges that you get just mean you cannot go as far. Like your cable lengths shorten a lot. So all of these have an impact on power and heating, really is what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah, very excellent point. I imagine you're seeing a lot of emerging applications for Ethernet as well. I'm having actually a guest on from Nokia in a few weeks who's building a network on the moon. So, interesting use case there. I think it's a 4G network, not a 5G. But what do you see
Come
for
on.
Ethernet? Do you see space-based Ethernet or
What do you mean?
underground Ethernet? What's
So
next?
Ethernet is there already. If you look around any of the more interesting high-tech stuff, or if you look inside new rockets or you look inside satellites, people are already using Ethernet inside them. So what you see in general is that the world's adopted the IP stack and everything that runs on top of it. And so if you plug it into Ethernet, it just works. So you can certainly find hardened Ethernet all over the place, including drones and space and airplanes and stuff.
And it better just work if it's on a satellite. You can't go and power cycle the system when it's not talking back to you, right? That robustness and reliability that Ethernet brings becomes super critical in some of those applications.
For huge volume, the auto industry is adopting Ethernet quite aggressively because they used to be the same case of having a boatload of older protocols. They want to get rid of them. Because your car is basically becoming effectively an enterprise network on wheels. It effectively has a local data center inside it and a bunch of processing. So they're aggressively adopting Ethernet both at the low speed at 10 megabits and also driving up to 25 to 50 gig. And those are the guys who are really going to be driving volume. But I think the answer is anytime you're building a device which is quite smart, you're often going to see Ethernet inside it. And anytime you want it to be attached mostly in one place and connected, you're going to put it on the outside.
Great insight. Yes, your future mechanics may need to be more like network engineers than old school mechanics when your car goes wrong. So that'll be fun to watch, or maybe not so fun. Any advice for industry stakeholders who might not be a member of the Ethernet Alliance? Why should they join? Why should they get involved? Maybe early stage vendors or other kinds of service providers.
This is always sort of tricky. So we are the best way to both get in touch with to have an outward impact on the world, right? So to go and talk about what it is, to help get stuff up and running, and to help sort of drive the direction of how we message Ethernet. So, I mean, people come in for things like Plugfest, they come in for vendor demos, they come in for being able to participate in PWE certification. We are really the people who can drive the industry voice on Ethernet, and that's hugely important along with the vendor voice. Because the vendor voice, as you well know, right, we all treat it with a little suspicion for a bunch of reasons. So having a coherent industry voice, I think, really matters. I would say we tend to try and set the entire playing field and let people play with beside it. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally does. I guess a final thought here. I'm sorry, Sam. Anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say on the Plugfest event side, right? That's like I said, that gets the majority of my attention is there, and that can be an opportunity for some really early interoperability, right? That many times the vendors are bringing their next generation products. They're still pathfinding solutions, and most of the devices there, it's very common for them to be pre-market, right? So this is an opportunity to identify, find, and fix issues before you're having to pay your customer support team to go out there and debug it. Like we said, we have 224 gig that we're starting to bring into that space. It's just an opportunity to do testing that you would not be able to do any other feasible way. Not to mention, you get access to millions of dollars worth of conformance test equipment, and we do all kinds
Hmm.
of fun testing there. So, for depending on what type of access you have, that it can be a place to get some really some broad evaluation of your device that would otherwise be very spendy potential. So there's uh there's all kinds of advantages, but um, yeah, I say the last thing I would say is that we are really member driven. So um, you know, everyone who comes into the HSN and is the world that I'm most familiar with, who has ideas, requests, suggestions, I listen, we hear that, we are constantly evolving and improving and seeking feedback and really just trying to do what it is that the membership desires. That's what drives us at the end of the day. So if you have some ideas or requests, join us, bring your ideas, please. We'll go make them a reality.
So of course I've
That's
got to hang on
awesome.
to that one. So Sam is looking at the world of how do we make sure that it just works. Now then, when we have it just working, we'll go and show it off. And if you're a smaller company, right, getting an interop demo with the giants is really hard.
Mm.
So we have a place to go and show that off where even though the giants don't necessarily need to be there, right, the smaller companies absolutely need it, right? Showing your stuff working is important. Then what we do is we help you tell a story around the technology. So our goal is to have a voice from all of Ethernet. And for smaller companies, that's really hard to do. Bigger companies, as I said, I think the role for us is to help make a single playing field that we argue inside. The worst thing for almost all of our vendors is if we start slicing the market into smaller pieces, we all lose. So that's
Mm.
EA is the place where we can talk as the voice of the industry to all our consumers.
Well, it's a wonderful mission, and it's
It's a
great to
great mission.
be
So
well, a
I
great
actually,
community that's not profit marketing driven, community driven, grassroots. It's great to
I
hear.
mean, I actually
What
have
do
a
you
great job, because I get to talk from the entire community. It's a wonderful thing.
awesome? What are you, Peter, thinking about? What's next in terms of your travel events, personally, professionally, your day job, as well as the Ethernet Alliance? What's next for the next few weeks for you?
So I just got back from an 8:03 meeting in St. Petersburg in Florida.
Hmm.
Next week I'm going to Amsterdam for a Cisco Live event where I'm obviously speaking for myself.
It's a big
After that, I
week.
think there's a 8:03 meeting in Denver. There's another one in Annapolis in May. Cisco Live in June. 8:03 in July. OFC's in there somewhere. ECOC's in somewhere else. So I generally get to go. I'm lucky enough to go and actually talk to a lot of people, both on the development and consuming side. And that sort of informs how I try and tell my story.
Oh, well said. That's a busy and fun agenda. What about you, Sam? What's on your radar for the next few months?
Yeah, well, I stay a little closer to home. My day job is I don't get the travel perks that Peter gets necessarily, but
We have to fix that. Come
um,
on.
yeah, right. So from an EA standpoint, we're finalizing the some of the results from our last Plugfest and gearing up to share those. We are able to publish those some of the anonymous results from that event, and then we're already starting to think about the next event. So like I said, some of the testing that we did at this last event is helping inform IEEE decisions right now. We're looking at hoping to have some of the outcomes of that in the May timeframe coming out of IEEE. So trying to target the next testing event shortly after that. So late May, early June, looking at our next Plugfest to sort of continue this testing, this kind of back and forth evolution of as IEEE standards are developing. We'll take that latest, greatest, new methodologies, whatever the case is, and yeah, those events take a lot of planning, a lot of bandwidth. So start gearing up for that now. And then in the day job, my team's got a couple of new devices that have recently powered on, so we get to go and have all the fun of what it looks like integrating those in our interop test environments and building tools and enabling customers and all of that. So always plenty to do.
Yeah, a fair bit of news happening around Intel these days. So that sounds fascinating. Well, thanks so much, gentlemen. It's been a really insightful discussion as a former electrical engineer doubly of 30 years ago. It's I have a lot of catching up to do, so it's great to get an insight into the latest and greatest. And yeah, reach out everyone to the Ethernet Alliance. Follow them on social media. You guys have tons of great content as well on social. That's how I came across you. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Okay,
And
thank you.
have a great
Thanks
time.
everyone for
Nice to meet
watching.
you.
Take care.
Thanks,
Nice to meet
Evan.
you. Thanks.